Ashe, and welcome to another special episode of our Mandatory Mental Liberation Message series, written and produced by our esteemed elder Baba Jelani Bumani Dembe, the brilliant founder of Majestic Mind Matters University. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin, for this new episode. The necessity of the Mandatory Mental Liberation series at Majestic Mind Matters University lies in our focus on serving our melanin-rich culture nation. By addressing the importance of knowledge of self to produce greater self-awareness and advocating for our mental liberation, especially for our precious melanin-rich culture children, our messages aim to combat the enduring effects of generational mental enslavement stemming from the historical trauma of the chattel enslavement of the ancestors. Our initiative seeks to empower us to break free from these harmful and unfavorable legacies and cultivate a deep-rooted sense of self-identity and unwavering resilience. In a world where words carry weight, these terms hold a history of oppression and discrimination. Our melanin-rich culture nation has not given up on the fight for liberation. We know that terms like Black or brown people, people of color, perpetuate stereotypes and homogenize our melanin-rich culture people. In this message, it will only be used to maintain clarity for those who are not yet up to our melanin-rich culture standards. By embracing indigenous terms like Alkebulan, this name means mother of mankind, in various African languages such as Akuyu, Swahili, and Kemet, referring to ancient Egypt, and rejecting the terms Africa or African, these oppressive terms, which are unknown to many, we are reclaiming our melanin-rich culture narratives and asserting our royal cultural pride. Our melanin-rich culture nation uses terms like chattel enslavement instead of slavery, and the enslavers or slavers rather than masters or slave owners, to highlight the brutal and dehumanizing nature of historical and systemic oppression. The term chattel enslavement emphasizes the objectification of the ancestors as property, rather than acknowledging them as humans. Referring to the oppressors as the enslavers or slavers instead of masters or slave owners shifts the focus to the injustice and violence perpetrated by those in power. These terms accurately reflect the systemic exploitation and inhumanity faced by our melanin-rich culture communities throughout history, challenging traditional narratives that downplay the severity of these atrocities. Knowing the power of language in shaping global societal perceptions and challenging systemic racism is our first step to true liberation. In this message, the term African American or Black may be used in order to convey understanding regarding the mindset of that time period. Many of our messages will shed light on our melanin-rich culture civilization individuals who have helped gain more ground towards our global unity. Each moment you spend with us is a gift, a chance to grow, to learn, to be inspired. So stay with us till the end, where the real magic happens. Now, let's get started with this very special melanin-rich culture message titled Embracing Our Alkebulan Roots, the Righteous Path to Spiritual Freedom. In our melanin-rich culture civilization, it is crucial that we come together and collectively understand the importance of reclaiming our knowledge of self. For far too long, we have been taught to worship the gods of our colonizers and disregard our own natural Alkebulan spirituality. This has not only led to the erasure of our heritage and traditions, but has also perpetuated a cycle of self-hatred and disconnection from our true identity. It is important to recognize that the imposition of colonizers' religions on us was a deliberate act of cultural erasure and manipulation. Through the process of colonization, our ancestors were forced to abandon their own beliefs and practices in favor of the religious systems brought by the Europeans. This was done in an attempt to subjugate and control us, to strip us of our autonomy and power. As a result, many of us have grown up believing that our traditional spirituality is inferior or even sinful. We have been conditioned to view ourselves as unworthy and in need of salvation, to see our own gods as false and the colonizers' gods as the only true divinities. This mindset has been internalized and passed down through generations, further perpetuating the cycle of cultural erasure and self-negation. It is time for us to break free from this mental bondage and reclaim our knowledge of self. We must remember that our ancestors were deeply connected to the land, to nature, and to the divine forces that govern the universe. Our Alkebulan spirituality is based on a profound respect for the interconnectedness of all life, a reverence for the ancestors, and a deep understanding of the cyclical nature of existence. By embracing our natural spirituality, we can begin to heal the wounds of colonization and reconnect with our true selves. We can reclaim our identity, our heritage, and our power as a melanin-rich culture civilization. We can rediscover the beauty and richness of our traditions, the wisdom of our ancestors, and the strength that lies within us. In order to unify globally, we must first unify within ourselves. We must recognize that our diversity is our strength, that our differences are a source of beauty and richness, and that our shared history connects us in ways that transcend borders and boundaries. By reclaiming our knowledge of self and embracing our natural Alkebulan spirituality, we can begin to heal the divisions that have been imposed upon us and move towards a more harmonious and inclusive world. It is time for us to let go of the chains of colonization, to break free from the mental slavery that has kept us divided and disempowered. We must stand together, united in our shared heritage and our common humanity, to create a world that is truly just, equitable, and inclusive for all. Let us reclaim our knowledge of self, embrace our natural spirituality, and work together to build a future that honors the beauty and diversity of our melanin-rich culture civilization. As members of a melanin-rich culture and civilization, it is imperative that we collectively address the detrimental impact of idolizing the gods of colonizers on our children. Our shared history and heritage are rich with traditions, beliefs, and values that should be cherished and celebrated. However, the pervasive influence of colonialism has led us to internalize damaging messages that devalue our own culture. When we teach our children to idolize the gods of colonizers, we are perpetuating a colonial mindset that promotes the belief that our melanin-rich culture and civilization are inferior. This harmful ideology can have profound effects on the self-esteem and self-worth of our youth, leading to feelings of shame and self-hatred. By prioritizing the gods and deities of those who once oppressed us, we are reinforcing the idea that our own beliefs and practices are not deserving of respect or recognition. Furthermore, idolizing the gods of colonizers can result in a disconnection from our roots and identity. Our cultural heritage is a source of strength and resilience that has sustained us through generations of struggle and oppression. When we fail to honor and respect our own gods and ancestors, we risk losing touch with the traditions and values that define us as a people. This sense of disconnection can have long-lasting negative impacts on our mental and emotional well-being, leaving us feeling lost and adrift in a world that does not fully acknowledge or appreciate our contributions. In order to combat the legacy of colonialism and promote a more positive and inclusive worldview, we must prioritize the preservation and celebration of our own melanin-rich culture and civilization. By instilling pride in our heritage and instilling a sense of reverence for our gods and ancestors, we can empower our children to embrace their identity and stand tall in the face of adversity. When we take ownership of our history and traditions, we reclaim our agency and assert our right to exist on our own terms. Honoring our own gods and ancestors is not about rejecting other belief systems or cultures, but rather about affirming the value and worth of our own. By centering our own spirituality and traditions, we demonstrate to our children that their cultural identity is valid and deserving of respect. This act of cultural preservation and reclamation is an act of resistance against the forces that seek to erase us and diminish our contributions to the world. In our joint efforts to unify globally, it is essential that we prioritize the celebration and preservation of our melanin-rich culture and civilization. By rejecting the colonial mindset that tells us our beliefs are inferior and unworthy, we can create a more equitable and just society for future generations. Our shared history and heritage are powerful tools for unity and empowerment, and by honoring and respecting our gods and ancestors, we can build a brighter future for us all. Let us stand together in solidarity and pride, celebrating the beauty and diversity of our melanin-rich culture as we work towards a more inclusive and harmonious world for us all. In our melanin-rich culture and civilization, the influence of colonizer gods and religions has been deeply ingrained in our spiritual beliefs and practices. For centuries, our indigenous traditions were suppressed, devalued, and replaced with foreign belief systems that sought to control and dominate our spiritual lives. This legacy of colonization has had a lasting impact on our cultural identity, as many of us have been made to feel ashamed of our ancestral traditions and beliefs. To truly unify globally and break free from the shackles of colonization, we must first acknowledge the harm that has been done and reclaim our cultural heritage. This involves reconnecting with our traditional spiritual practices, honoring the wisdom of our ancestors, and seeking out sources of knowledge that reflect our unique cultural perspectives. By embracing our true spiritual roots, we can begin to heal the wounds of colonization and rediscover the beauty and richness of our indigenous traditions. One of the key aspects of reclaiming our spiritual heritage is challenging and resisting the continued imposition of colonizer gods and religions in our communities. We must question the ways in which these belief systems have been used to justify oppression and control, and seek out alternative forms of spiritual expression that honor our values and traditions. By reclaiming our spiritual sovereignty and rejecting the colonizer's gods, we can begin to build a more authentic and meaningful connection to our cultural heritage. Breaking free from the influences of colonizer gods is a deeply personal and ongoing journey. It requires us to be intentional in our efforts to decolonize our minds and spirits, and to actively seek out ways to reconnect with the wisdom and beauty of our ancestral traditions. This process may involve exploring spiritual practices such as ancestor veneration, sacred ceremonies, and traditional healing modalities that have been passed down through generations. By reclaiming our indigenous spiritual heritage, we not only honor the resilience and strength of our ancestors, but we also build a foundation for a more unified and empowered future. Our melanin-rich culture and civilization have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom to offer the world, and by embracing our true spiritual roots, we can contribute to a more inclusive and diverse global community. In our joint efforts to unify globally, it is essential that we prioritize the decolonization of our spiritual beliefs and practices. By rejecting the colonizer's gods and reclaiming our cultural heritage, we can begin to heal the wounds of colonization and build a more authentic and empowered sense of self. As we continue on this journey of reclaiming our spiritual sovereignty, let us remember the strength and resilience of our ancestors and honor the beauty and diversity of our melanin-rich culture and civilization. Together, we can usher in collective empowerment. As members of a melanin-rich culture civilization, we recognize the importance of educating ourselves about our cultural heritage and spiritual practices in order to unify globally. Through our joint efforts, we can embrace our roots, celebrate our diversity, and honor the wisdom of our ancestors. To begin, we must actively seek out opportunities to learn about our cultural heritage. This can involve engaging in research, reading books, and having conversations with elders and community members. By immersing ourselves in our history and traditions, we can gain a deeper understanding of who we are and where we come from. This knowledge not only enriches our own lives, but also strengthens our collective identity as a community. In addition to educating ourselves, we can come together to celebrate cultural events that showcase our traditions and values. By organizing and participating in festivals, ceremonies, and gatherings, we create spaces where we can express our cultural pride and connect with one another on a deeper level. These events help to foster a sense of unity and belonging among us, reminding us of the beauty and richness of our shared heritage. Furthermore, we can support local artisans and traditional practices by purchasing and promoting products made using traditional techniques. By investing in the work of our community members, we help to sustain and preserve our cultural heritage for future generations. Through our support, we can ensure that traditional craftsmanship and skills are passed down and valued within our community. To further promote our cultural heritage, we can work together to create community spaces that showcase and celebrate our traditions. Establishing community centers, libraries, or museums that highlight our cultural legacy allows us to share our stories, art, and rituals with others. These spaces serve as a hub for cultural education and engagement, bridging the gap between generations and fostering a sense of unity within our community. In order to pass down our traditions to future generations, we must provide cultural education through workshops, classes, and programs that teach traditional spiritual practices. By offering opportunities for younger community members to learn from elders and spiritual leaders, we ensure that our cultural knowledge and wisdom are preserved and passed on. This education not only strengthens our connection to our roots, but also empowers us to carry forward our traditions with pride and reverence. As we engage with elders who hold knowledge and experience with traditional spiritual practices, we gain valuable guidance and wisdom. By seeking out their insights and learning from their stories, we deepen our understanding of our cultural heritage and spiritual beliefs. Their guidance helps us to navigate our own spiritual journeys and connect with the wisdom of our ancestors. Incorporating traditional spiritual practices into our daily lives allows us to cultivate mindfulness and connection to our roots. By engaging in practices such as meditation, prayer, and rituals, we honor the traditions of our ancestors and strengthen our relationship with the spiritual world. These practices help us to maintain a sense of balance and harmony in our lives, grounding us in our cultural identity and spiritual beliefs. Furthermore, we must foster intergenerational connections within our community by creating opportunities for older and younger members to come together and share knowledge and experiences. By bridging the gap between generations, we promote understanding, respect, and unity within our community. Through these connections, we can learn from each other, celebrate our differences, and strengthen our collective bond. Respecting and protecting sacred sites and natural spaces that hold cultural and spiritual significance is essential to preserving our heritage. By working together to safeguard these sites, we honor the sacredness of our land and ensure that future generations can continue to connect with our cultural traditions. Protecting these sites is a collective responsibility that reflects our commitment to preserving our cultural legacy for generations to come. Finally, we must advocate for cultural preservation by supporting initiatives and organizations that work to revitalize and preserve our cultural heritage. By getting involved in community efforts to protect our traditions, we demonstrate our commitment to honoring our roots and passing down our cultural legacy to future generations. These initiatives help to raise awareness, mobilize resources, and create sustainable solutions for preserving and celebrating our cultural heritage. In conclusion, through our joint efforts to educate ourselves, celebrate cultural events, support local artisans, create community spaces, provide cultural education, engage with elders, practice mindfulness, foster intergenerational connections, respect sacred sites, and advocate for cultural preservation, we can unify globally as a melanin-rich culture civilization. By embracing our roots, honoring our traditions, and supporting one another, we can create a more connected, harmonious, and resilient community that celebrates the beauty and diversity of our shared heritage. Together, we can build a stronger, more unified future for ourselves and generations to come. I'm your royal narrator, Queen Magical Melanin. We trust that this very special message has expanded your understanding through the insights shared by our highly esteemed producer, Elder Baba Jelani Bumani Dembe, founder of Majestic Mind Matters University, in our Mandatory Mental Liberation Series special message. Remember this, it is essential to honor the ancestors. We have a unique connection to the ancestors. They endured many unwarranted struggles, preserved our melanin-rich culture, and passed down invaluable wisdom through many generations. By honoring the ancestors, we pay honorable tribute to our roots and draw great strength and much-needed inspiration from the unwavering resilience and royal legacy that has paved the way for our present and future generations. Ancestral reverence is a powerful way for us to continually uphold our own melanin-rich identity, heritage, and cultural legacy. Here is an ancient Alkebulan proverb to keep in mind. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent the night with a mosquito. Remember this as well, whenever you are in the presence of anyone, saying, "They don't see color," it actually means, "They don't see you." We acknowledge and honor the indigenous name of our glorious continent as Alkebulan. This name means Mother of Mankind in various African languages such as Akuyu, Swahili, and Kemet, referring to ancient Egypt, and rejecting the terms Africa or African. As royal members of our melanin-rich culture nation, we must strive for knowledge of self for greater personal awareness, Always treat yourself kindly and seek to live a totally awesome and gloriously fulfilling melanin-rich culture. Life. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. So, like, subscribe to stay updated, and share this very special melanin-rich culture link with everyone that you care about and that really cares about you and all of yours as well. And thank you for listening to this enchanting special message titled Embracing Our Alkebulan Roots, the Righteous Path to Spiritual Freedom. Stay woke. Ashe.